I don't accept that the IRA was an impediment to unity. I do accept that its day had come.
We're here to talk about 20 years ago, the IRA statement when it said it was ending its armed campaign. How significant a move was that, Gerry, in your eyes?
Well, it was hugely significant. If you consider that there has been 200 years of armed insurrections through various generations of Republicans, and this was saying it's over. And some people, I asked Jim Gibney the other day, how significant is this? He said, it's the first time in 1,000 years that armed actions, armed struggle has been set aside as a mode for struggle. So I do think, and I'm always very conscious to preface this by acknowledging the hurt that the IRA caused and to people who have been bereaved or injured. But I do think that the IRA deserve huge credit for taking that very, very courageous position. And it has opened up the ground for all of us who want a new Ireland, for all of us who want a united Ireland or an end to the Union or an end to partition. And it has also meant that there are, God knows how many people alive who would be dead. It means that those folks who made up the IRA or supported the IRA, who ended up in prison, who ended up in graves, now folks can rear their children in the knowledge that they're not going to end up in that quandary, that there's a peaceful way to do it, peaceful way to move forward, and that should be our focus.
So just in it was 2005, St Andrews was yet to be agreed. What were the circumstances that enabled the IRA to end their campaign? And was that a precondition to any deal that would see the DUP enter power sharing?
Well, the entire matter of initiatives by the IRA, going right back to its first cessation in whenever it was, 94, have to be seen in the context of efforts to build an alternative to armed struggle. And that goes back to Father Alex Reid, goes back to Father Des Wilson, myself, the early talks with John Hume, Sinn Féin actually deciding to embrace peace as a political objective. Scenario for peace, towards a lasting peace, other discussion positions brought forward. And what the IRA was responding to was the outline of a way of going forward as or instead of armed actions. In the peculiar circumstances of 2005, so the process was up and down, and David Trimble was finding it very, very difficult to sustain an involvement and to keep his party with him and all of that. And around that time, I can't put the precise date on it, but around that time, maybe 2003, 2004, myself and Martin McGuinness formed an opinion that we needed to get Ian Paisley somewhere into this process. And we were in the Assembly, and we both had noted independently that at different times he was showing an interest in something that may have been said by a Sinn Féin person speaking. So we decided that we would look at his positions, and he had put up all these different obstacles. And we decided to see if we could put together a strategy to remove all these obstacles so that he had no option but to embrace the process. And I spelled that out in a speech at Bodenstown, not in those clear terms, but that sense of it, because a lot of nationalists and Republicans thought the process was in deep trouble because of where it was situated. We also briefed both governments that we were going to try and get Paisley involved. We opened up a back channel to the DUP. So the DUP and I, sorry, not me, but the DUP and Sinn Féin were privately trying to figure out ways to go forward, and it was that possibility of getting a deal. Now this becomes immensely involved and complicated, because we actually did have a deal. I love telling this story. We did have a deal with the DUP, and Ian Paisley was to go into the chamber and make a statement. And the statement had been agreed privately with us. And just before he went into the assembly to make the statement, he sent his word that he couldn't make that statement because there was a resistance within his party. It was the 12 Apostles, as they were called, right? So this was like within minutes before he made the statement, half an hour or so before. So we all got into the assembly, and Ian was going to make a different statement, and that would have meant that the thing was scuppered. And then in arrives Michael Stone. At that very second, he arrived in as he got up, or just before he got up to speak, and of course the whole thing was bedlam and went into pandemonium. And I remember myself and Martin actually assisting Ian Paisley out of the building, and his son Ian Og was there as well, and hightailing it down to Stormont Castle, to Peter Hain, I think was the Secretary of State, and saying to him, you need to get that man in here. Now, it took another 6, 7, 8 months to get from that position, but I always thought there was an irony in the effort by the DUP hardliners to thwart an agreement was prevented by the attack by Michael Stone, the arch loyalist. And eventually we did get that famous optic of the Sinn Féin and DUP leadership side by side. So it was the IRA had spelled out in a number of statements its preparedness to accommodate, to support, to facilitate a comprehensive agreement, and that's what we eventually ended up with.
Okay, so was it a sort of precondition, or at least something that the DUP wanted, an assurance, at least?
Well, the DUP wanted many things. Remember, sackcloth and ashes. Mm-hmm. The policing issue was still to be resolved. All of the other parties had either acquiesced to or agreed to an inadequate policing and justice dispensation. Seamus Mullen, God rest him, famously said it was impossible to make any more progress on the issue. We made more progress on the issue. We stuck by the position that we were looking for. So that was an issue which had to be settled as well. But basically, I mean, the IRA statement speaks for itself. Shana Walsh read it out, and it said that it thought there was now the possibility or the opportunity to proceed towards Republican democratic objectives through peaceful and democratic means, and ordered its volunteers to abide by that and to be involved in no other activity whatsoever except developing programs to do just that. So it didn't get into the detail, of course, of what that's up to the rest of us to do. But in terms of it leaving the stage, I think it was a huge vote of confidence in the people. It was a huge sort of it was a non-defeated army, basically saying, "Look, it's over to you. We're satisfied that no one else needs to be killed to kill the go to prison. Let's proceed to find ways of governing ourselves in the future.
Did the end of that armed campaign make the likelihood of United Ireland greater?
Well, bear in mind two elements. None of those who are anti-United Ireland welcomed the IRA initiative. It was rubbished, it was ridiculed, it was treated very sceptically and cynically. So those who had that position, and who still have that position, if they read what I'm saying now, they'll take issue with it. But the fact is that the IRA, and the proof of it is in the last 20 years, is not part of life in this island. So it does provide the opportunity for an agreement, which is the Good Friday Agreement, to be developed and to be implemented. And I can say with certainty there is going to be a referendum on the future of the island. We don't know when. We know the British government doesn't want to do it. We know this current Taoiseach doesn't want to do it. We know the unions don't want to do it. But it's going to happen, because that's the direction of travel, and that's what all the indicators are, and that's what we are totally and absolutely committed to working with others to bring about. So there's going to be a referendum, and what we need to do is to not recommit Brexit. We need to plan, we need to talk, we need to dialogue, and that is also the challenge for unionism. Whatever about their position, and they're entitled to it, we do need to explore. This is our place. It's our place collectively as an island people. We need to start trying to figure out, can things be better? And there are indicators there that there are people who would be traditionally unionist or who would be committed to the union. But they're starting to wonder, are they valued by London? Are they valued by the British system? Would they not have a better say in an Irish national democracy, or whatever form of democracy people decide to put together? So it's all to play for, and it has advanced considerably, and you could argue that the question of unity, of the future, and then the related issues, whether it's what type of health service do we need, what about a single island economy, what about public services, what about flags, emblems, all of that. They're all being discussed out, they're all being looked at, there are books being published, there are studies being done, there's ongoing opinion polling, but I don't pay that much heed to it, but there are people with great knowledge and expertise examining all of these questions and trying to inform people so that people will make an informed judgment when they come to putting their mark on the ballot paper when the referendums happen.
You say that the prospects or the momentum behind the goal of unity has advanced considerably. Is there an acknowledgement? Would you acknowledge that much of that momentum has been driven by Brexit and by a British government own goal?
I think Brexit was a moment of time, and it clearly did open people's eyes to how little the British government cared about this part of the world. But if you consider the Brexit result here in the north was against Brexit, and that was ignored by the British government. The DUP campaigned for it, and they ignored they call themselves the Democratic Unionist Party, they ignored the democratic will of the people. So I do think it was a particular moment, but I don't think it's solely the reason why more and more people are looking at the prospects, the more positive potential of an all-Ireland arrangement. Remember, before Brexit, there was the economic worth of the border had faded ages before. But after the Good Friday Agreement, there were all island arrangements in agriculture and industry and commerce and other arrangements. And it looked as if that was going to be done away with. It looked as if there was going to be a hard border. And I think that the fight back, and we were very much part of it, to prevent that, shows the strength of popular opinion, including within some elements of unionism, particularly within the agricultural and farming sector. So, and also I think that people, time moves on, and unless you or your family have been personally affected by the conflict, unless you've lost a loved one or been injured, it moves on, and there are now, I suppose there are now folks who were children during the Good Friday Agreement are now having children themselves. So that's the way life is, and that's a good thing. So people value the peace. They actually don't take it for granted. The young people might, and I don't think that's a problem, them taking it for granted, by the way. But the rest of us who've been through it, a lot of people started to get a bit concerned that things could go backwards. And in my humble opinion, things will never go backwards. It's forwards all the way.
Again, you say that the project has been advanced considerably. That would support the argument, some might say, that the IRA campaign was an impediment to United Ireland, one of the greatest impediments. And I'm sure you're familiar with that argument. How do you respond to that?
Well, I resist the temptation to refight the war. It's over, so people can make whatever judgment they want. What the IRA, if it did nothing else, showed that the British could not rule this place on their terms, that the Unionists could not rule this place on their terms. And the IRA could not have done that unless it had very sizable support from a section of the people here. So it isn't all just down to the IRA. I mean, I know lots of people who were involved in resistance their entire lives and never looked at a gun, never picked up a gun, weren't part of the IRA, but they were just had a sense of themselves as Irish people, and they weren't going to bow the knee, and they wanted to rear their children in freedom and peace and equality. So I don't accept that the IRA was an impediment to unity. I do accept that its day had come, and it was gracious enough to also accept that and to exit stage left, and now it's down to the rest of us and anybody else who has a view of the type of future we want. It's up to us. We're going to be the people that shape the new Ireland. We're going to be the people who are going to be able to write our future. Not many people get the opportunity to write the future. We can write the past in whatever way we want, depending on our take on it, but we now have an opportunity to write our own future.
And what do you believe became then of the IRA after that announcement in July 2005?
Well, a lot of what would be former IRA people joined Sinn Féin and were welcomed into Sinn Féin. A lot got a life. A lot got involved in getting an education, all the normal, academia, there are former IRA people without making anybody paranoid, just getting on with their lives in all sorts of ways. I remember that this also was 20 years ago. So it's in the nature of life that we all the time keep regenerating ourselves. So the arms issue was dealt with to the satisfaction of the International Commission on Decommissioning. There are clearly legacy issues. They're causing huge disquiet. I mean, why would Keir Starmer take up the position, or Hilary Benn take up the positions they're taking up to prevent families. And as far as I know, some of the families involved, like the family of Sean Brown, what was Sean Brown guilty of? Being an official in the GAA, being a leader in his community, and yet there were British agents all around that man's murder. Similarly with Pat Finucane, which is coming into another phase of the family search for the truth. So why is Starmer taking up the position that he's taken up? Why is he refusing to accept the outcome of his own Supreme Court in relation to internees who were unlawfully detained? And I'm not talking about myself, although I was probably the test case, but there's up to 300 or 400 mostly men out there who were unlawfully detained for years. Why is he saying they're not going to get compensation? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that when you see what's happening in other parts of the world, that the British government is not getting itself behind the efforts that were agreed at Stormont, agreed in different other agreements of dealing with the past. The IRA is gone. Another thing you need to reflect upon is, what's the story with these unions, paramilitaries? What's the story with the British agents, or agencies that, the MI5s, the different other versions of it? What are they doing? What are they doing out there? So that's the responsibility of the British government. The Republicans have dealt with all of these matters satisfactorily. And the proof of the pudding's in the eating. Here we are, 20 years later. It's still a battle a day. The unions, in my opinion, most unionist leaders know that the game is up. But it's not over. So what they're doing is trying to delay and to dilute change. And some of them may be genuinely afraid or concerned about the future, and again, dialogue will start to find the answers to all of that. But if you were to ask me what's the key objective of the DUP at this moment, to unseat Michelle O'Neill as First Minister in the elections in 2 years' time. That's the sole objective of the DUP. And all of its positions, whether it's around bonfires, whether it's around signage and a bus station, whether it's around Casement Park, all of it is being dealt with through that prism. Get to the election and get a unionist First Minister in place. And the rest of us who are sensible need to make sure that the progressives in the Assembly continue to build their majority and continue to make coalition work and continue to deal with issues which are affecting people.
So you're suggesting that there's a lack of strategizing within political unionism?
Oh no, they're undoubtedly strategizing, but it's day-to-day strategizing. It isn't. We're going to look back at 20 years. We're also going to look forward 20 years. Where is unionism going to be in 20 years? You could be relatively certain that from the Republican strategies, from the work that we're doing, and obviously you have setbacks and it's slow and you can be frustrated at maybe some of the diversions and distractions that present itself. But Republicans are aiming to have a completely new dispensation based upon the democratic will of the people. The unions aren't doing that. Some are. Some have put their head above the parapet and said, look, let's look at where we are and let's think about this, Some know that it's not a matter of no surrender, or what we have we hold, or we are the people, or not an inch. All those days are gone.
Do you think that it's counterproductive very often for Republicans to highlight the flaws in unionism thinking, or to ridicule it sometimes?
Yes. I don't always succeed. Sometimes I have slippages, but yes, I think that we have to appreciate, for whatever reason of history, that we're all here together. Right now, lighting bonfires laced with asbestos between two electrical transformers, that doesn't, rock my boat at all. Right? People here found it fail and fubble and moved into an entirely new, inclusive, enjoyable artistic expression of communal values and culture and so on. And incidentally, increasingly every year at the Féile, more and more people come from obviously Protestant or Unionist backgrounds, and the big dance nights have huge numbers of youngsters from Sandy Row and from the Shankill and from East Belfast and other Highfield and so on. So those barriers are slowly being broken down. But the direct answer to your question is yes. It's better to try and understand. So clearly the band's culture, the uniforms, the music, and I like the music, and all that goes with it. Some people within unionism, loyalism, orangism, they like that, and no harm. I'm 100% certain in most parts of the north that is, particularly in rural areas, a family day out. Mightn't be everybody's cup of tea, but it's enjoyed by them. It's when you see the type of scenes that you see in interface areas, when you see it being reduced to just sectarianism, when young people are being led up the wrong way, when there's clearly drugs and paramilitary involvement in drugs behind some of these issues, which the one in the village dominated attention for the run into the 12th. So clearly that has to be tackled at one level, but on the other level, let's find outlets. I mean, there will be orange parades in a New Ireland. Orange is one of our national colours. So we have to find ways of accommodating all of that and not interfering with all of that. At the same time, we need to make sure that everybody stays within the law.
Okay, just to explore your fondness for Orange Band music briefly. Any particular tunes, I think, rather than the lyrics that you'd like to cite?
Well, I don't think the Sash is a sectarian song. I am a loyal Ulsterman just come across the sea, and for singing and for dancing, I make good company. It's played in a provocative way, and it's played outside places of worship, outside chapels, outside masses, and so on. So, it could be any sort of invasion of people's space will become provocative and annoying.
This may sound perverse to some people, but do you envisage, or would you like to see a day when the Orange men are welcomed back up the falls where they once paraded?
Well, I'm not so sure how much they were welcomed, but they were certainly tolerated, and I want to see a situation where, for those who are into marching, that it can be done without in any way offending anyone, and that we can all just tolerate it and get on with it. What is it? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? That's good. But the Orange, the Orange still refuses formally to talk to Sinn Féin. It's ridiculous. So there's a big job of work, and how can you blame kids who get sucked into that stuff when their elders are not setting a better example? I would, and I'm sure Michelle O'Neill and others who are in leadership at this time, I'm sure Paul Maskey, the MP for West Belfast, and others, would be only too pleased to talk to the Orange. The Orange men have been invited into Áras or Conila, and there's an open invitation for them to come and take part in Féile and Phobal. So I mean, they need to get their heads straight, that they have nothing to fear from anybody here. One of the best Orange parades out is the one in Rosnowla. And I remember listening to Radio Ulster one day, now this is a good long time ago, it was during the Garbahy Road disturbances. And while all the mayhem was going on Garbahy Road, there was a family day out eating ice cream up at Rosnowla. And the worshipful Grand Master of the lodge there was asked by the Radio Ulster presenter, why was that so? And he said, well, up here we don't threaten anyone. And I thought that was honest and insightful. So let's get our act together. We've dealt with so many issues, including the issue of contentious parades, that they're now, it's the temperatures, it's moved on to bonfires, but there's not the same. That there might be an effort to recreate tension around the parades, but thankfully that has been dealt with. So let's talk about all these things. If they want to go anywhere, or I want to go anywhere to provide any sort of exhibition or to celebrate whatever I want to celebrate, let's talk about it all.
Okay, just to return to the 2005 announcement, like a decade later, following the McGuigan murder in the Short Strand, the Chief Constable said that the IRA Army Council was directing Sinn Féin. How do you respond to that assertion?
Well, the Army Council never directed Sinn Féin, and if you go through anything I've ever said about this, going right back to my decades in leadership, we took our own decisions in Sinn Féin. The Ardèche of Sinn Féin is the supreme authority within the party. It's open. It's where the leadership's elected. It's where policy is debated. It's where strategy is agreed. So that's all nonsense. There are lazy journalists who talk about Conley House, and Conley House has been closed for long enough now. Look around at Sinn Féin, the largest party on the island of Ireland, the largest party in the north. Michelle O'Neill as the First Minister, a woman, Republican woman from County Tyrone. Mary Lou leading the opposition in the Dáil, a plethora of MPs and MEPs and so on. So Sinn Féin is open, democratic, vibrant, and heading to bigger and better things in the future. Okay.
Finally, in April 2005, you made a speech, an Easter speech, I imagine, in which you asked or appealed to the IRA to lead the stage and to end its campaign. What would you say to those who suggest you already knew the answer to that question, that you were engaging in show business or even worse, sock puppetry of some sort?
Well, I wasn't. I couldn't have foreseen the outcome. Obviously, I wouldn't have made the appeal had we not worked very, very hard at creating the conditions that would have made it easier for people to embrace what was being set out. But, none of us foresaw, the Yoma bombing a way back, just in the aftermath of the Good Friday Agreement. So it's impossible to legislate for any of this, and I say it again to the credit of the IRA, the vast majority of IRA volunteers, of those who supported them, of their families, of the communities in which they were centrally a part of, all embraced the new dispensation. And the proof of that is the growth of Sinn Féin. Had they not done that, you wouldn't have the type of organisation, the type of democratic dispensation that there is now within, the independence or the New Ireland, and outside of Sinn Féin as well, contingent is stronger than it's been at any time.
There are still organisations, of course, which will use that name, Oglen Ahern, and the IRA. Are you in any way optimistic that they, to borrow words from Pope John Paul, may return to the path of peace at some stage?
Well, they have no purpose. There is no purpose. There's no reason. If they want to parade about, if they want to dress up and do whatever commemoratives they want to do, that's fair enough. That's legitimate enough. But it's not serious. There are ceasefire soldiers out there, and it's also, and sometimes it's in the nature of the human condition. It isn't that uniquely Irish that as struggles move into new phases, some people can't embrace what's going on. Some don't want to lose whatever perceived authority they had. But there's no reason whatsoever, none whatsoever, for any group purporting, pretending, or indeed acting in an armed way at this time. No reason whatsoever.
Okay, it's over to you to speak about Micheál Martin, and I imagine it's more than just say slap it up you after Sunday, but go ahead.
No, I was actually, to take you off on a complete distraction, I thought the commentators who spoke about Cork collapsing didn't give due credit to how Tipperary outhurled them. They didn't play in the second half because Tipperary wouldn't let them, and Cork are a good team. So I value the GAA, Gaelic Games, immensely. No, Micheál, I think, has got himself caught in this position, and he's on Taoiseach. So any Taoiseach, any person who has that responsibility has to plan for the future. We all know that they've just released different propositions for dealing with the economic and other difficulties. So we all know we have to plan for the future. He says this government will not plan for the future of Ireland in its term. Now, he needs to think about that. I mean, what signal does that send to the Unionists? What signal does that send to those of us, like the SDLP, are doing some useful work with its work on Irish Unity? Sinn Féin have a commission which actually shows that people want to talk about the future, want to come together. All the events that are organised, all the hearings are very, very, very successful. There is no problem getting people to come and sit in panels or to talk from an expert position on whatever the issue is that's up for discussion. Citizens' assemblies work. They're broadly popular. They're very democratic. They allow people to be informed and to inform others. So that's what he should be doing as an Taoiseach. The Shard Island does good work. That's fair enough. But he himself says it's not about Irish unity. So let it get on with, and I would support that. let it get on with investing in good causes. But let's not turn our backs on the opportunity that we now have. When I spoke earlier on about that the movement, I use it in the broadest term possible. So it stretches from people who have set up podcasts to Ireland's Future, to Ria Varadkar, to others in the different parties in the South, to the SDLP, to ourselves, to people in Britain, to people in America, all trying to inform themselves and to prepare for the future. That's what an Taoiseach needs to be doing. He has to embraced the notion that he could be an Taoiseach for the whole island of Ireland if he paid attention to what people are saying to him about the need to have dialogue and discussion about what sort of Ireland we want.
Okay, I'm going to squeeze one last one in, Gerry. You've obviously aware about the debate triggered by Cumber and different things about the GAA, and you've heard that unionist concerns about the Joe Cahill Cup. Do you think the GAA has anything to apologise for in that regard, and can do anything to assuage those concerns that unionists have?
Well, if there are real concerns there, then I'm sure the GAA would find ways of assuaging them. I'm sure that would be the case. I mean, the history of the island, hurling was illegal. Gaelic football was illegal. Camogie was illegal. It's not that long that you wouldn't have worn a GAA Ganzi in the centre of Belfast. It's not that long that if you had a kit bag or a pair of hurdles in the back of the car and a couple of slithers, that you'd be on the side of the road being gone through. So the GAA is part of all of that. It is the finest amateur sporting organisation in the world. It's tremendous. And it brings people in, and it's truly non-sectarian. It's truly colourblind in terms of the new Irish and everywhere and everyone else. So, I mean, sport can be, as Michelle O'Neill said recently, sport can be a great uniter. And I would challenge anyone who's interested in sport or athleticism to go to, whether it's juvenile or whether it's at the very highest level, at All Ireland level, to go to a hurling, a camogie, women's football, or a hurling game, and not be uplifted by it. It's just tremendous.
Okay, thank you,
Okay,
Gerry.
John, thank you.